Well, howdy, y'all, and welcome on back to Creepy Vibes. Now, I ain't one to spook easy, but what we got tonight, woo, buddy, it'll rattle your bones like a snake in a tin can. We're fixin' to tell y'all 20 true Texas tales so dang creepy, they'll have you sleeping with the lights on and the shotgun loaded. We got ghost towns that whisper, highways where time gets lost, and places so cursed, even the coyotes stay clear after dark. But let me tell you something real quick. Most folks, they forget to subscribe. And them same folks, they're the ones hearing knocks at the window when ain't nobody there, so don't be that fella. Click that there subscribe button and ride with us through the strange and the haunted. And y'all, I sure do appreciate all the love y'all been showing lately. Means more than a warm fire on a cold West Texas night. Keep that love coming, and I'll keep the scares rolling. They still talk about her in Waco, especially when the river runs high and mean, carrying branches and bones down the swollen veins of the Brazos like secrets the land can't hold any longer. The old folks, the ones who sit outside in the shade and drink sweet tea with their memories, they'll tell you not to go near the suspension bridge in the early spring. And if you do, don't listen too hard, because that's when she comes back. Eleanor Griggs, the Whispering Widow. She was 26 when she vanished, young but already carved hollow by grief, like the inside of an old pine box. Her husband, Jonathan Griggs, went off to fight for the Confederacy in 1861, and like most boys who left the cotton and heat behind, he didn't come back whole, if he came back at all. Some said he was shot near Shiloh, left to rot in a muddy trench while the war marched past. Others said they saw him after, wandering Texas, a man with blood on his hands and another woman on his arm. No one knows for sure. What they do know is that Eleanor waited. She wrote letters until her hands cramped, and when the letters stopped coming, she waited some more. She took to walking the riverbank in her widow's black, every morning at first, then in the blue dusk, then finally in the dark of night. They said she walked barefoot, the hem of her dress dragging in the mud, whispering his name like a broken music box. Then came the spring of 1874. The Brazos was angry that year, angry like something alive. It had been raining for 10 days straight, and the river had teeth. Folks said it was only a matter of time before someone got swept off the bridge. No one expected it to be her, but on a misty morning, they found her shawl caught on one of the bridge cables. Just the shawl, no body, no splash. Just silence and a single muddy footprint leading halfway up the railing. They searched the river for 3 weeks. Nothing, not a bone, not a boot. It was like she stepped into the water and disappeared into the skin of the earth. The town tried to move on, but the river wouldn't let them. The first report came in the spring of '76. A boy fishing just past the bend near Indian Spring claimed he saw a woman standing in the shallows, long hair hanging like wet rope, face as pale as the moon. Said she was staring at the bridge, whispering something he couldn't understand. When his father came to check, the woman was gone, but the air smelled like roses and something else, something old and wet, like rot under perfume. Every year after that, when the Brazos swells and the water turns that muddy green, someone sees her. Sometimes it's a rancher out checking fence lines. Sometimes a couple from out of town taking pictures of the old bridge. And sometimes it's the ones who don't talk about it, the ones who come home pale and quiet, and who sleep with the lights on for weeks after. They all say the same thing. She's whispering names. Not just any names, names that mean something. The first to notice were the Crawfords. In '88, their boy drowned near the bridge. A week before, the grandmother, half blind, half senile, swore she heard her grandson's name being whispered outside the window just before dawn. Then came the Dawsons. Their oldest son went missing in 1913. Left home to enlist in the army, never even made it to the train station. A fisherman swore he heard the name Daniel Dawson on the breeze coming off the river that morning, like it had been spoken by someone underwater. The pattern built slowly, like a bad stain. Names whispered, then bodies gone. Not always dead, some just disappeared. But always around the spring floods, always near the bridge. By 1932, the town had a name for her, the Whispering Widow. They even tried to exorcise the bridge. Brought in a preacher from Dallas. Big man, booming voice, full of holy fire and theater. He lasted 10 minutes before he dropped the Bible, went white as snow, and ran back to town. Locked himself in the church and refused to speak of what he saw. Things got worse after that. A high school girl in 57, a pair of tourists in 73, a jogger in 1989, just vanished mid-run. All of them had one thing in common. Someone had heard their names whispered near the river days before, and it wasn't just any whisper. They say it sounds like your own mother calling you home, soft and sweet, but if you turn toward it, if you follow the sound, you'll find her standing just past the shallows, still barefoot, still soaked to the bone, still whispering. They say her mouth doesn't move when she speaks, that her eyes are wrong, too big and too dark, like there's river water trapped inside her skull. One man, a drunk who tried to talk to her in 1997, came back with all his hair turned white. Didn't speak for 6 years. Died in a home outside Temple, still scratching her name into the walls with his fingernails. The town doesn't post signs, doesn't need to. The locals know better. They don't go near the river in March or April, not if they can help it. And they sure as hell don't walk the bridge after sundown. But still, she comes. Every year. No matter how many prayers, no matter how many warnings, the river always gives her room to stand, and the wind always carries her voice to someone new. The Whispering Widow doesn't want revenge. She doesn't want peace. She wants company. And sooner or later, she always finds someone who listens. Groom, Texas, is the kind of place you'd miss if you blinked too long while passing through on Interstate 40. Dusty, quiet, a handful of streets, gas station that smells like rubber and grease, a diner that hasn't changed the menu since 1968, and one of those towns where you feel like you've walked into a memory someone else left behind. But ask anyone about the water tower, the leaning one, and their faces go tight, like someone squeezing the truth out of them, drop by painful drop. Tourists think it's a gimmick, a joke, a roadside attraction, something to post on Instagram with a funny caption. Oops, someone was drunk when they built this one. But the folks who live in Groom don't laugh. They know the tower didn't always lean. It was dead straight when they built it back in 1957. Solid, gleaming white, painted with the town's name in proud red letters. A symbol, a landmark. And for a while, that tower meant Groom was going places. Until the day Jimmy Tillman went missing. He was 12, skinny. One of those kids who always had dirt under his fingernails and knees scabbed from jumping off things he shouldn't. The kind of boy who ran barefoot in the summer and chased fireflies with a mason jar. He liked to climb, trees, sheds. Even once tried to scale the high school gym with a jump rope and a bike helmet. So it wasn't a surprise to anyone when folks said he'd been spotted near the water tower that afternoon, daring his friends to climb it with him. They chickened out. Jimmy didn't. It was supposed to be harmless. A prank. A story to tell on the school bus. But when the sun set and Jimmy wasn't home, his mom called around. By midnight, the whole town was looking. Flashlights sweeping the fields. Dogs sniffing the dirt. Voices shouting his name, echoing back from the rustling wheat like ghosts. No one found him. They say the sheriff climbed the tower himself the next morning. Didn't see a thing. No rope, no sign of struggle, just silence and water. But when they opened the hatch to the tank itself, well, that's when things started to go sideways. Literally. The hatch was closed tight, locked from the outside, but the water inside was wrong. Murky, red-tinged, not blood exactly, just off. The maintenance guy, Buck Rayner, said the water tasted old, like it had been dead for years. Nobody knew what that meant, but nobody wanted to drink it either. That same night, the tower began to lean. Not a lot, just a couple of degrees. Not enough for the city engineers to panic. They figured it was a shift in the foundation. Maybe a freak windstorm. Ground settling. Something boring and scientific. They sent a crew to check it out, but nothing was broken. No cracks, no damage. Just a slow, subtle tilt to the southwest, as if the tower was bowing toward something buried beneath the soil. Jimmy was never found. Every year on the same day, July 19th, the tower leans a little more. Not much, less than an inch. But it adds up. Locals started calling it the bend. It became a measurement. How many bends this year? The town tried to distract from it, turned it into a quirky tourist spot. Leaning Tower of Texas. Kids took field trips there. People posed pretending to hold it up like it was some kind of joke. But strange things happen when you get too close. Dogs won't go near it. Birds don't land on the railings. There's a dead zone around the base where grass refuses to grow. And if you put your hand against the tower on July 19th, some folks say you'll feel a vibration, like a heartbeat. Thudding low and slow, not mechanical, not human. There are stories. Of course there are. A couple that broke down near the tower claimed they saw a boy in the grass, barefoot, waving. But when they got close, he was gone. Just two small footprints in the dirt and a trail of wetness, like someone had dragged a soaked blanket behind them. A woman once said she heard crying coming from the top. Climbed the service ladder halfway before she started screaming. Said she saw something in the hatch. Something white and bloated, pressed against the inside, like a drowned face watching her through the metal. Kids dare each other to go up there at night. Some come back pale and shaking. Some refuse to talk about what they saw. One boy left town completely. Never packed his things. Just walked out into the night and kept going west, like something had gotten into him and wouldn't let go. The town council talked about tearing the tower down. That was back in 2009, when the lean got noticeable enough to show up in news articles. Structural engineers came in, shook their heads, muttered things like unnatural angle and defies gravity. One of them said the base had no right to be holding weight like that. It should have collapsed years ago, but it hadn't. They sent in a demo team. Crane, charges, big plans. But the night before the scheduled teardown, one of the workers disappeared, left his boots by the chain link fence. His hard hat floated in the cattle trough the next morning, full of water that smelled like rust and rot. The company pulled out, claimed insurance reasons. The town stopped trying. Now, every July 19th, the people of Groom close up early, lock their doors, keep their kids inside. Some tape up the windows, others sleep in motels 3 towns over. No one talks about it anymore, not really. It's like an open wound everyone agreed to pretend wasn't bleeding. But the tower still leans. Not by physics, not by weather, but like something inside it wants out. It's tilting towards something, maybe someone. And if it ever falls, if it ever comes crashing down, that tall white giant with its twisted spine, it won't be gravity that did it. It'll be whatever's been waiting inside. Patient, cold, drenched, and 12 years old. They say it started as art. 10 Cadillacs nose first in the ground, fins pointing up like rusted gravestones jutting out of the prairie dirt. A tribute to the golden age of American steel. Tourists love it. Kids spray paint their names across the doors. Couples pose with cigarettes in their mouths and cowboy hats tilted just so. You drive 10 minutes west of Amarillo, and there it is, standing in the middle of a flat, wind-blown nowhere like a monument to speed, decay, and something else no one wants to talk about after sunset. The paint never lasts. Not because of time or weather, but because the cars don't want it to last. You can put your tag on there, write your name in silver or blood-red Krylon, and by morning it'll be distorted, twisted into some shape you didn't leave. One kid sprayed a heart with his girlfriend's name in it, right on the door of the '59 coupe. Came back the next day, heart was still there, but the name had changed. It read his name, over and over again, carved in thin, jagged lines, like it had been scratched in from the inside. The locals don't go near the ranch after dark. You'd think they would. It's a landmark, a claim to fame. But they know better. The wind changes out there at night. It stops howling and starts whispering. You can't always make out the words, but it's never pleasant. It's like the land's trying to remember something it shouldn't, and the Cadillacs are its teeth. Back in the '70s, when the cars were first buried, people said they could hear music playing from the site at night. That wasn't so strange. Folks figured it was teenagers playing tunes, getting high, messing around. But when you got close, the music didn't sound like any band on the radio. It wasn't Led Zeppelin, it wasn't Floyd. It was older, slower, gritty saxophones, bad tape hiss, a kind of music that sounded like it was being dragged up from under the ground. Then the radios started acting weird. A guy named Carl Seeger lived in a trailer just a few hundred yards from the site. Said his battery-powered set would kick on at exactly 3:03 a.m. every night. Static, then a low hum, then what sounded like an engine idling. He took the batteries out. Still came on, so he smashed it. Got a new one. Same thing. The sound followed him to another trailer park 2 towns over. Didn't matter what brand, what model, he even tried one of those old wind-up radios. They all did the same thing. Static, humming, idle engine. Then a voice just under the noise whispering, "Come ride." Carl stopped sleeping. Started drinking. Eventually took a shotgun to every radio he could find. It didn't help. The theory is the cars never stopped running. Not really. It's like their engines kept idling in some other place. Call it the ghost world, the mirror realm, whatever. Their tires may be gone, their interiors rotted to hell, but their hearts are still beating. Just not here. People have heard them. Middle of the night, no one around. Just that high Texas wind and the hush of the highway, and then the unmistakable growl of a V8. You look around, there's nothing. But you feel it in your bones, like an engine rumbling across your rib cage, like exhaust curling up from the grave. One time, a YouTuber brought an old ham radio to the site. Thought he'd pick up ghost chatter, maybe make a viral video out of it. He got something. You can still find the audio online, scratchy as hell, hard to listen to. But in the background, under all the white noise, there's a voice whispering coordinates. It just keeps repeating numbers. When someone traced them later, they pointed to a stretch of desert 50 miles west of Amarillo. Nothing out there but dirt and sky. He went out to find it. Left his car by the fence line. They found the car, still running. Doors wide open. Radio playing static on full volume. But no sign of the kid. All that was left was his tripod. and a pair of sunglasses sitting neatly on the hood, like someone placed them there on purpose. Sometimes the headlights come on. That's the worst of it. You'll be driving past at night, and for just a second, you'll see a pair of old-style headlamps flare up in the distance, bright, burning white, like they're aiming right at you. Then they go out. But if you stop and look, nothing. Just the same rusted hulks in the dirt. Some say it's just the cars, that they remember the road and want to be back on it. Others think it's something in the cars, something that was put there or woke up there, or maybe something that crawled in when the ground opened up and swallowed their noses. Whatever it is, it hums, it waits, and it likes to take people. You can still visit Cadillac Ranch. You can tag the cars, take your selfie, spray paint your name. Just don't stick around after sundown, don't bring a radio, and for the love of God, don't touch the steering wheel of the 57 with the split windshield. Locals say that one's the hungriest. Because the truth is, not all ghosts look like people. Some are chrome, some have wheels, and some are still trying to drive their way back to hell. It was built as a joke, a roadside oddity. Some rich guy's dream to recreate the ancient world in the middle of Texas, out in Ingram where the sun bakes your skull and the deer outnumber the people. Fiberglass and metal painted to look like aged stone, arranged in a perfect mimicry of the real thing. They called it Stonehenge 2. Tourists would pull over on the way to the river, snap a few photos, and laugh about it over BBQ later. But locals, they didn't laugh. Not really, not after what happened. It was summer, blistering hot even by hill country standards. The kind of heat that makes the air feel thick and slow. A group of teens from nearby Hunt High, 6 of them, rolled up to Stonehenge 2 late one night. They brought beers, a Bluetooth speaker, and one of those dumb TikTok ritual ideas where you summon the spirits of ancient places. There was a girl among them named Rena Beck, 17, the quiet one. Didn't drink, didn't talk much, but went everywhere with that group. Her parents were church folk, the strict kind. She was supposed to be at youth camp that weekend. They set up in the center of the stones, played some droning music, lit candles from a gas station emergency kit, drew symbols in the dirt, stuff they printed off Reddit. Most of it was garbage, Celtic knots and runes from fantasy games. But one of the boys, Jimmy Cardell, had gotten something darker. A symbol he swore was real druid stuff, found on a dead forum page written in broken Latin and Norwegian. He carved it into the ground with a tire iron, dragging the metal hard until sparks jumped. They all laughed, except Rena. She said it felt wrong, that the stones were too quiet, that she couldn't hear crickets or even the wind through the trees. But nobody listened to her. At 3:17 a.m., neighbors down the road heard a scream. Not just a regular scream, but one that cut through glass and made dogs whine and crawl under porches. When the sheriff showed up, only Rena was there. She was sitting in the dirt with her arms around her knees, blood running from her nose, her eyes wide and empty, blind, screaming, over and over again. The sky was wrong. It had too many faces. They never found the other 5, not a shred of clothing, not a drop of blood. The beer cans were still cold, music still looping the same ambient track. But the kids? Gone. Erased. The strangest part, the part that gave grown men a reason to keep their distance, was that the stones never cast shadows again, day or night. Not even during the noonday sun. People noticed it immediately, but nobody wanted to talk about it. You'd drive by and see those hulking slabs in the field and your eyes would play tricks on you, because everything else would cast a shadow. Trees, cars, even the chain-link fence nearby, but not the stones. Tourists still stop by sometimes. They take photos, puzzled by the brightness. A few even ask the locals why it feels so flat there, like the sun can't decide where to hit. The locals just nod, say, "It's just how the light is out here," and walk away fast. Rena Beck never spoke again. She was institutionalized in Kerrville, in a private wing. Doctors say she has no physical damage to her eyes, but she sees nothing. Her parents bring her stuffed animals and read her scripture, hoping one day she'll snap out of it. But she won't. Because sometimes, when the nurses change her bedding or sit by her for the night shift, they say she whispers to herself, just soft enough to slip under the white noise of the hospital machines. She says the stones were never dead. She says they were waiting, and she says the others aren't gone, just folded into the space between, waiting for someone to open the gate again, to draw the right shape, to speak the wrong word. So now, at Stonehenge 2, the county put up a warning sign. Do not enter after dark, property under surveillance. But the cameras don't work. Batteries drain in minutes, and the footage, when it's not just static, is always distorted. Sometimes, on solstice nights, the grass inside the circle grows black and brittle, even when everything around it is green. And some say if you stand at the center at exactly 3:17 a.m., you'll hear whispers in the windless silence, calling your name, daring you to stay. Most people think it's cute. That's the first mistake. They drive into Paris, Texas, after seeing a billboard that promises something kitschy and charming. Come see the Eiffel Tower, Texas style. And there it stands, a steel replica of the French landmark, barely a fraction of the original's size, topped with a bright red cowboy hat like it's playing dress-up. Folks pose for pictures, post it on Instagram, buy keychains from the nearby gas station, and leave thinking they've seen something harmless. But they never feel quite right after. Ask any of them a few weeks or even years down the line, and they'll all say the same thing. I can't sleep like I used to. Nightmares, whispers in the dark, a fear of looking up at the sky too long. Some say their clocks never tick the same way again. Others hear something tapping on the glass of their bedroom window, even when they live on the 15th floor. They say it's all coincidence. That's the second mistake. The real story, the one the old-timers won't tell you unless you've earned it, unless they've seen something in your eyes that says you felt it too, is this. There was another tower before it. It wasn't cute, it wasn't friendly, and it wasn't built by men. In 1973, the town was small, sleepy, and mostly ignored by the rest of the world. One summer morning, without warning, a black iron structure appeared at the edge of Walker Field, where the wild grass grew too high and nothing ever stayed long. No trucks, no workers, no blueprints. Just a sudden, silent tower, twice the size of the current one and darker than a coal seam at midnight. People didn't know what to make of it. It hummed, low and constant, like a power line buzzing behind your brain. Radios turned to static within a mile. Dogs barked until they collapsed. Every clock within view lost 5 minutes every hour and never got them back. Then the sky started changing. Birds avoided it. Clouds wouldn't pass overhead. For 3 straight nights the moon disappeared entirely, not behind clouds, but like it had been erased. And people, one by one, started vanishing. Not in groups, just one here, one there, all with no connection. A mother making toast, a kid riding his bike, a priest locking up his chapel, gone, not even dust left behind. That's when the whisper started. Only from those who spent time near the tower. Only from those who heard the hum the longest. A single phrase, muttered in their sleep or scrawled into the dirt behind their homes. It's not from here. Not a single person questioned what it was. They knew. The town held a meeting. The mayor, Back then, a man named Jarvis Reed tried to calm folks down. He said they'd bring in scientists, engineers, military, but none of them came. Or if they did, they didn't stay long enough for anyone to notice. The tower stayed, unmoving, unyielding, humming like it was feeding on time. Then Charlie Denson disappeared. He was 12, a baseball kid, loved sugar sandwiches and old monster movies. On a dare, he walked under the tower one afternoon, right up to the shadow it cast. He touched the base. Nothing happened at first, but when he turned to run back, he didn't move. He just stood there, mouth open, eyes wide, and then he was gone, like a light blinked out. 2 days later, his baseball glove was found on a nearby bench. Inside it was a photograph that hadn't been there before. Grainy, black and white, and torn. It showed the tower, but it wasn't Walker Field. It was somewhere else. Somewhere with jagged mountains in the background and stars that didn't match our sky. A smear of darkness coiled above it, almost like smoke, but not. More like a shape that shouldn't be seen. They tore the tower down after that, or tried to. Chainsaws broke. Blowtorches sputtered out. Heavy machinery failed. Finally, a local welder named Curtis Hallowell climbed to the top with a stick of dynamite and a prayer. He lit it and never came back down. The explosion didn't even make a dent, but the next morning the tower was gone. Just gone. No debris, no crater. Just flattened grass and an unnatural silence that hung over the field like a cold fog. The townsfolk thought it was over. They were wrong. The dreams began. Everyone within a few miles started dreaming of a hole in the sky, not a black hole like in space, a literal hole, ragged, pulsing, leaking light like sour milk. Something tried to crawl out of it, long, thin fingers like coat hangers, dripping wet, a whisper that sounded like thousands of mouths speaking backward, and one word etched behind every eyelid: hollow. People stopped going out after dark. Some stopped sleeping altogether. 5 suicides happened in 2 weeks, all with their eyes clawed out. That's when Jarvis called in a favor from some deep-pocket government contact, someone he'd worked with during the war. A man with no name, who arrived with no ID, no paperwork, and 1 truck full of welding gear. He didn't say much, just looked at the field, nodded once and said, "You'll need a decoy." Something that says fun. Something that doesn't think. 3 months later, the new tower went up. Steel, shiny, and built to be photographed. The red cowboy hat was the finishing touch. Not for style, but for sealing. Something to cap the energy, a distraction for the whole, a blindfold for the eye. The dreams stopped. Mostly. Jarvis vanished the next year. His wife found his shoes on the porch, and all the mirrors in their house shattered inward. His voice was found on the town's emergency frequency, just breathing. Still plays every February 12th if you dial into channel 8.6 at 3:33 a.m. Since then, it's been a quiet war. The town repaints the hat twice a month. Sometimes more. They check the welds, polish the bolts, and never let anyone climb too high. You can feel it if you stand near the base long enough, your heartbeat slowing, your thoughts getting heavy like they're being pulled. Like something underneath is waiting for the lock to rust. Last summer, a tourist threw a rock at the tower. He laughed when it bounced off, took a picture and drove off. 3 hours later, his car was found upside down in a ditch 20 miles east. He was gone. But in his phone, still miraculously working, they found a dozen photos he hadn't taken, each one showing the tower from higher and higher up, until the last one was from above the clouds. Looking down, the cowboy hat was missing, and in its place was a black hole yawning open. One of the old men at the gas station looked at the photo and whispered, "It's getting hungry again." They all know it's not really over, because the steel doesn't rust, the hat never fades, and the sky above the tower has never again had a single star. Just a still, waiting black. Freer, Texas. Not much more than a patch of sunburned land, a few stubborn locals, and a heat that clings to your skin like a desperate ghost. Most people wouldn't even know the name if it weren't for the snake. Not a real one, fiberglass. 40 feet long, coiled like it's waiting for God to step on it. Fangs bared in a permanent snarl. World's largest rattlesnake. A roadside attraction with dead eyes and a hollow body. Meant to draw in tourists, sell a few t-shirts, and keep the museum lights on. But the thing is, it rattles. It's not supposed to. Hasn't had a tail since some drunk teenagers broke it off in the late 90s. No moving parts left. It's hollow, filled with dust, old beer cans, and maybe a wasp nest or two. But still, folks walking by at dusk hear it. That unmistakable ch-ch-ch-chay, dry and mean, like someone shaking bones in a coffee can. Sometimes it's faint. Other times it's sharp, loud enough to turn heads, make your teeth buzz. No one's ever caught it on camera. Phones freeze, batteries die. The sound isn't for recording, it's for warning. The drifter came through town about 6 years back. Tall guy, pale. Looked like he hadn't slept in a while. Name might have been Ellis or Elias, something biblical and worn out. Showed up barefoot, carrying a denim jacket like it was a dead animal. Asked a lot of questions, wanted to know about the snake. Said he could feel it pulsing from 3 blocks away. Said it was calling to him. He tried to climb it, of course. Locals warned him, told him it wasn't safe, that the snake wasn't a prop, that there were things you didn't mess with out here. Not because they were powerful, but because they were awake. But he laughed it off, said, "It's just fiberglass, right?" It was almost sunset when he started the climb. Used the coils like steps. Real easy at first, even graceful. Reached the head, stood there with his arms out, like he'd just conquered the damn world. Then the rattling started, loud, angry, like the earth itself was shivering. A dozen people were standing outside the diner across the street. They all heard it. Some felt it in their shoes. Dust started swirling around the base of the statue, real fine, like powdered bone. The man didn't move. He just stood up there, eyes wide, like he was hearing something we couldn't. And then, he was gone. Not fell, not jumped, just gone. One blink, and nothing was there but the snake. No scream, no thud, no shadow. His denim jacket was found draped across the fangs the next morning, neat as laundry on a clothesline. The wind hadn't moved it all night. They searched, sure. Drones, dogs, cops from 2 counties. Someone brought in a ground-penetrating radar unit. But it was like the earth had swallowed him and didn't want to give him back. When they scanned the inside of the statue, they picked up something weird. Something coiled deep inside the base. Not metal, not fiberglass, something dense, something warm. The museum closed for a while after that. Reopened quietly, no press, no fanfare. But they don't talk about the statue anymore, don't clean it, don't repaint it. It's covered in dust and faded graffiti now. World's largest rattlesnake is barely legible. Only the eyes stay clear, somehow never collecting grime, never blinking, just staring straight at the diner across the road. They say it only rattles when it's hungry. Kids dare each other to touch it at night. Most chicken out. The one who didn't, Brandon Ochoa, got a nosebleed that wouldn't stop for 3 hours. Said he dreamed of tunnels. Said he heard something slithering through the dark, huge and slow and full of breath. He left town a month later. Won't return his mama's calls. Old-timers remember before the statue was built, back when the land there was empty. They talk about a pit, deep and narrow, like a sinkhole, except it wasn't natural. Something used to crawl out of it. Ranchers lost cattle. Dogs barked at nothing until their voices gave out. One man claimed he saw a tail sliding back under the dirt, scales the size of license plates. When they paved the lot and put up the statue, the pit disappeared. Or maybe it didn't, maybe they just covered it, hid it in plain sight, built a shell around it and called it art. No one in Freer touches the statue, not anymore, not even to fix the paint. They say if you look close at the teeth, you'll see tiny red stains that weren't there yesterday. If you put your ear to the ground at its base, you'll hear breathing. And if you wait long enough, if you're real, still, you might feel the coil tightening just below your feet. They made a joke out of a monster. Put it on postcards and souvenir magnets. But it never stopped being a snake. And it never stopped waiting to strike. They call it a trick of the air, atmospheric reflection, thermal inversion, swamp gas, even though there's no swamp for 100 miles. Scientists bring their gadgets and try to explain it with graphs and laser scopes, setting up their cameras in the high desert outside Marfa, Texas. But locals don't need science. They've seen the light since before there was a Marfa, before there were roads or fences or borders, just sky, scrub, and the things that move when you're not looking. The lights come at dusk, mostly. Right as the sun's bleeding out over the Chainadi Mountains, you might see a yellow orb flicker in the distance, low to the ground, bouncing and swaying like it's alive. Sometimes it's red. Sometimes it splits in two, then vanishes. It never makes a sound, never casts a shadow. If you try to film it, your battery dies, or you end up with a long video of just black. If you try to follow it, well, that's where the stories start. Ben Holtz was the first in recent memory. Rancher. Good man. Had a place just north of the highway, about 3 miles from where the lights are seen most often. Lost a dozen head of cattle over 1 week in August. No blood, no tracks, just gone. Like they were scooped up into the sky. He went out one night, rifle in hand, determined to catch the thieves he was sure were behind it. His wife begged him not to go, said she saw something out there. A figure standing inside the glow of the lights, tall and thin like a scarecrow with limbs too long. Ben laughed it off, said she'd been watching too many late-night horror shows. He kissed her, said he'd be back before midnight. They found his truck 2 days later, engine cold, door wide open. His hat was in the seat. His boots were 30 feet away, sitting upright in the dirt like he'd stepped out of them. But no sign of Ben. Dogs wouldn't go near the area. The dirt was scorched in a perfect circle. And no tracks again, just the wind brushing over dry mesquite. 6 months later, he came back, sort of. He walked into town barefoot, wearing a shirt that wasn't his, eyes cloudy like old glass. He didn't talk, didn't blink much either, just stared at people like he was trying to remember what they were for. They put him in the clinic, tried to get him to speak, but all he ever said, over and over, was, "They hum when they open." No one knew what he meant. He died a week later. Heart stopped while he was asleep. They buried him next to his father. The day after the funeral, his grave was dug up. The coffin was empty. Then there were the college kids. 6 of them, road tripping from Austin. They read about the Marfa lights on Reddit, thought it'd be fun to get drunk and chase them with GoPros. Only one made it back. A girl named Melissa King. She was found on the edge of the viewing area, clothes torn, face sunburned like she'd been walking under a desert sun for days. even though she'd only been gone 12 hours. Her mouth was full of black sand. Her eyes were wide, pupils blown out, and her fingernails were broken from digging. Into what, nobody knows. She won't speak, not to her parents, not to the cops, not to the shrinks. But sometimes she draws. Always the same thing, stick figures with stretched necks and big black eyes, standing in front of a glowing tear in the sky. Not a sun, not a fire, just a split, like the world itself had been ripped open and something on the other side was looking through. The townsfolk know better than to follow the lights. They'll watch from the hill, sip their beers, and pretend it's just an illusion. But they won't go out there, not past the gravel road, not into the brush, because they've heard the stories. They've seen too many people come back wrong. And some don't come back at all. Cattle still go missing. Sometimes whole herds, no blood, no bones, no sign of struggle, just a silence that settles over the desert like a blanket soaked in static. And sometimes at night, if you listen real close, you can hear it. That hum, low and steady, like something warming up. The scientists keep coming. They set up their tents and bring their cameras. But the lights don't show for them, not always. It's like they know who's watching. Like they choose. Some folks say the lights are alive. Others say they're a doorway, a lure, like an angler fish in the deep. Whatever they are, they're older than science, older than Texas, older than people, and they're waiting. It was always meant to be a joke. The giant firecracker off Highway 105 in Cut and Shoot, Texas, 30 feet tall, red, white, and blue, painted to look like it might blow the sky open on the 4th of July. Tourists took pictures with it, grinning like fools. Kids begged their parents to stop so they could stand under it and shout, "Boom!" like it was a cartoon prop. It was harmless, a gimmick. Just another oddball roadside attraction, stuck between a bait shop and an abandoned Dairy Queen. But folks in town knew better. They knew the paint on that thing never faded, not even under the hot Texas sun. They knew the air around it always felt warm, even in December. And they knew that every time lightning struck within 5 miles, the firecracker would hum. A low, rattling sound like a fuse burning in reverse. It had started as a dare, like most bad things do. Back in the summer of '82, a man named Lester Gant decided Cut and Shoot needed a little flair. He was a junkman with too much scrap and too much ambition. Welded the thing together over a weekend and planted it in a field he didn't own. Slapped some red paint on it, stenciled the words "Old Glory Boomstick," and called it art. The mayor hated it. The Chamber of Commerce hated it. But the people loved it. It brought in traffic. And Lester just laughed and laughed, told everyone it was hollow, just steel and bolts and a whole lot of American pride. Only it wasn't. See? Lester had this cousin in East Texas, Wendell, who worked at a munitions plant, the kind of place they don't list on maps. Wendell was a little off, always talked about resonant ignition and soul energy. Said he was working on something called psychoreactive combustion, a bomb that knew it was a bomb. Nobody believed him, of course, but one night Lester and Wendell got drunk, and Wendell dragged a heavy crate out of his van. Said it was a failed prototype, useless and harmless. They jammed it into the base of the firecracker like a joke. "Let's give the boomstick a brain," Lester had said. They sealed it in and forgot about it. The next morning, Wendell was gone. No note, no call, no goodbye. His van sat empty in Lester's driveway, keys in the ignition, radio stuck on static. And that was the first time someone heard the whisper. It was a kid, Jimmy Hawkins, 9 years old, walking his dog past the boomstick right before a storm rolled in. The sky was green, the air thick. He said he heard someone counting, soft and slow, 19, 18, 17, over and over, like a bad dream. He ran home, said the air smelled like rotten eggs and fireworks. His mom thought he was making it up. 2 days later, Jimmy fell down the stairs and broke his neck. The countdown never finished. The whisper came back every time lightning got close. Not during the strike, before it. Like something in the air was pulling electricity toward it, feeding off the static. People said the voice always started around 20 and never went past 10, always stopped, always reset. And the voice, Lord help them, it was familiar. Sounded like someone they knew, a cousin, a sister, a dead friend. By the time the town started to believe, it was too late to take it down. They tried, sure. Bulldozers stalled out when they got within 10 feet. One welder's torch exploded in his hand, and one brave man, Tommy Dell, a local preacher with a temper and a death wish, walked up to it holding a crowbar and a bottle of holy water. Made it halfway before he dropped to his knees, clutching his head and screaming, "It's inside the metal! It's counting in my blood!" He went blind in both eyes. Moved to a trailer outside of Jasper and hasn't spoken a word since. The firecracker became a kind of local ghost story after that. People still stopped to take pictures, but the locals stayed away. Kids dared each other to touch it. Some did. Some ran home crying with nosebleeds and bloody ears. Others never talked about what they saw when their hand hit the surface. And the countdowns continued. Only now they changed. Instead of always starting at 20, they began from different numbers. Sometimes 11, sometimes 3, and one time, a stormy night in June, it started at 100. It got all the way to 2 before the lightning struck. That night, the sky turned purple. Not violet, not lavender, purple. The kind of purple that hurts to look at. The air boiled. A man named Ed Ruiz, who lived 2 blocks away, claimed he saw the firecracker split open and breathe. Said something came out. All wires and fire and long arms, and it whispered something in a voice that sounded like his mother. They found Ed the next morning, burnt to a crisp in his lawn chair, smile on his face, his eyes open and glassy, melted like wax. And the next morning the boomstick was whole again. No crack, no burn marks, no proof, just the whisper, faint as ever. Now, every time there's a storm in the forecast, folks leave town. They don't lock their doors. They don't turn off their lights. They just leave. Drive out in every direction like ants fleeing a kicked nest. Some don't come back for days. Some never come back. The city won't touch it. The county pretends it doesn't exist. GPS skips right over it. If you try to tag it on social media, your phone reboots. But it's still there, still humming, still counting, still waiting for a strike that won't stop at 1. Because one day, the countdown's going to finish. And Cut and Shoot, Texas, won't be on the map anymore. They thought it was just a malfunction, an electrical fire. October 19th, 2012. Big Tex lit up like a scarecrow dipped in gasoline, his fiberglass face melting into a twisted grin, his steel bones poking out through his charred shirt like the skeleton of something that had been pretending to be human for far too long. The crowd screamed. Kids cried. People filmed it on their phones like it was some kind of grand finale. But for the folks who'd worked the fairgrounds for years, who'd seen things they never talked about after hours, it didn't feel like an accident. It felt like a release, like something inside him had been waiting for the flame. They rebuilt him, of course. Couldn't have the Texas State Fair without Big Tex, that looming 55-foot cowboy with his wide smile, his 10-gallon hat, and his too friendly wave. New face, new boots, new wiring, better fireproofing. stronger than ever, they said on the news. But folks who worked the graveyard shift, maintenance guys, janitors, booth crews who stayed to pack up after the crowds left, they noticed something was off. His eyes, they used to be fixed, cartoonish, harmless. But now they seemed a little too round, a little too wet, and sometimes they weren't looking in the same direction. There was a janitor named Alonzo who worked the fairgrounds year after year. Real quiet guy, Army vet, never scared of much. One night in 2015, Alonzo was sweeping up near the base of Tex around 2:30 a.m. The lights were off. Only the emergency flood lamps cast shadows across the giant's boots. Alonzo said he felt watched, not just looked at, but studied like prey. He turned around and saw Tex's eyes glowing faint red. Just for a second. Then they blinked. They blinked. He dropped his broom and backed away. Said he heard something like a voice crackle through the speaker system, except there was no power to it. The words were slow, dragging, like wind through gravel. "Don't light the fire again," it said. "I'm awake now." Alonzo quit the next morning. Didn't even pick up his last paycheck. Told his daughter that Big Tex had been talking in his sleep for years, but now he was fully awake and angry about being burned. There were others too. A security guard found boot prints, giant boot prints, about 20 feet from the base of the statue one foggy night. No signs of cranes, no tire tracks, no footprints leading to or from them. Just indentations in the grass, like something had stepped down, turned once, and stood there for a while. Sometimes the fair music plays late at night with no power, deep in the heart of Texas, playing slow and warped, like it's coming from a broken music box buried underground. And always, when it happens, his mouth is open, just slightly, like he's mouthing the words. There was a rumor that started spreading online. Just whispers, old forum posts, a couple Reddit threads before they got deleted. Said the original Big Tex wasn't just a symbol of Texas pride. Said he was built over something older. The fairgrounds used to be pasture land in the 1800s. Before that, a Comanche burial site. And long before that, something the local tribes wouldn't even speak about. They called it the land where the fire walks, a place where things didn't stay buried, where wooden idols moved when the wind changed. They warned settlers to stay away. Settlers didn't listen. Big Tex was supposed to be a mascot, but what if, just what if, they accidentally made him a vessel? A 55-foot hollow cowboy, full of wires, steel, and space for something to live inside. And when the fire came in 2012, it didn't destroy him. It woke him up. Every year, they dress him in a new shirt, a new smile. But no one looks too closely anymore. Not the real fair workers. Not the ones who clean up the beer-soaked concrete at 3 a.m. They know better. They keep their eyes down, they don't talk to him. And they never, under any circumstances, touch the boots. They say the new Big Tex isn't as friendly as the old one, that his smile is just a little too forced, that his wave lasts a little too long, that when you stand beneath him, your heartbeat changes, slows down, matches something deep and heavy and ancient, like footsteps. The fair closes every night, but Big Tex stays, watching, waiting. And every October, when the air smells just a little like smoke, you might hear it again, drifting through the quiet. Don't light the fire again. I'm awake now, and this time, he means it. They built it back in '74, August, when the heat turns Houston into something closer to a pressure cooker than a city. The idea was part marketing gimmick, part civic pride, and part sheer Texan eccentricity. A local chain of barbecue joints called Bubba's Brisket Barn wanted to stand out from the pack. So they hired a sculptor from San Antonio, a man who claimed he'd once carved a 10-foot steer entirely out of limestone for a county fair in Del Rio. He called himself Rusty, though his real name was Benjamin Hargrave, and he worked barefoot, even in the dead of summer. Rusty used steel ribs and fiberglass shell, covered in layers of resin and paint, building the thing on site over 2 sweltering weeks. The result was a 15-foot-long, 10-foot-high armadillo, reared back on its hind legs like it was frozen mid-panic. Eyes the size of dinner plates bulged from its dome-shaped head, and the ridges down its back were exaggerated, armored like something from a dinosaur museum. Its tail curled under its body like a question mark and ended in a point sharp enough to snag shirts. Kids loved it. Parents rolled their eyes, took the photos anyway. But Rusty, when he left, said one odd thing to the restaurant owner, Joe Donnelly. "I shouldn't have built it here," he said, sweat pouring off him. "The ground talks when it rains." Joe laughed, called him a nut job. But he paid him, gave him a Bubba's t-shirt, and the sculptor drove off in a battered pickup with no plates and never came back. The restaurant boomed for a few years. People came for the brisket, stayed for the statue. It even made the paper once, featured in a quirky tourist roundup titled "The Weirdest Things to See in Houston That Aren't a Person." The photo showed 2 toddlers clambering on the armadillo's back while their dad pretended to wrangle it with a belt. Then, in 1992, the restaurant burned down. Official cause was a grease fire, but there were whispers about faulty wiring and a city inspector who went missing the same week. He'd filed a report about the foundation, claiming there were unexplained cavities in the soil beneath the building, hollow pockets that stretched down deeper than the drill could measure. The report was stamped, but never officially submitted, just sat in a filing cabinet collecting dust. No one ever rebuilt? The owner took his insurance payout and moved to Arizona, but the statue remained. Too big to move, too expensive to tear down, too heavy for the city to justify bothering with. So it sat there, a 15-foot fiberglass monster in a weed-choked parking lot. Graffiti covered its flanks. Broken beer bottles piled up in the grass. The tile chipped and cracked. The eyes dulled. People mostly forgot it existed, but not everyone. By the mid-2000s, urban legend had latched onto it like mold in a damp corner. Kids said it was haunted, that it was cursed, that the statue had been built over an old sinkhole where a family had vanished back in the 30s. Some said it was hollow and filled with bones. Others claimed it was a marker, something ancient that had been sealed underground, and the statue was just a lid, a cork. Then came the sinkhole. It happened in 2007, after a week of heavy rain that turned the city streets to soup. A delivery truck, a big one hauling canned goods, drove over the parking lot next to the armadillo. The pavement cracked, buckled, and gave way like a wet paper plate. The truck went down 6 feet and vanished, completely gone. No splash, no debris, just a wide, black hole that swallowed metal like it was candy. Emergency services cordoned it off. City engineers filled it with quick, dry concrete, but the whispers started again. A local named Daryl Simmons, 62, a man who sold fireworks out of a trailer each 4th of July, told a reporter that he saw something move the night after the sinkhole. Not the ground, the statue. "It shuddered," he said, eyes glassy, hands trembling, like a dog shaking off water. "I heard it groan too, like metal being bent slow. Ain't no wind that strong. Ain't no prank that good." No one took him seriously. But then Daryl disappeared a week later. They found his trailer abandoned, lights on, TV still playing static. The front door was torn off the hinges and lying flat on the grass. No sign of struggle, no signs at all. Just an empty lawn chair tipped over next to a half-drunk bottle of Lone Star. More vanishings followed. Not regular people, mind you, drifters mostly. Homeless men and women who camped under the overpass nearby. It's always the ones no one notices. But they noticed the pattern. They disappeared only when they slept near the armadillo. Cops checked it out a few times. Flashlights swept across fiberglass flanks and hollow rattles in the wind. They never saw anything, never heard anything either, but the air near the statue always felt wrong. Heavier. Then came the sound. People began to report hearing a low, rhythmic thumping beneath their feet when they stood near it. A pulse, a heartbeat, slow, steady, like something enormous and patient under the concrete, waiting for something. One night, a group of college kids dared each other to climb it. They filmed the whole thing, or tried to. The camera footage cut out 10 seconds in. Just blackness and static. When police found their car the next morning, the doors were open, engine still running. No sign of the kids, just one shoe. A single white Converse, sitting upright on the armadillo's back like it had been placed there. The city made plans to remove the statue after that. They brought in a demolition crew, big trucks, chains, machinery. The foreman, name was Clyde Henders, went down first. Slipped while marking a dig line. Hit the ground, screamed once, and then nothing. Gone. By the time the rest of the crew reached him, the ground had sealed over like nothing happened. Flat, dry, undisturbed. They packed up and left. The contract was canceled. The city stopped trying. Now, it just sits there. People avoid it. No one takes selfies with it anymore. The weeds are taller than your waist. The ground around it sags a little more every year, sinking, settling, waiting. Some nights, only some, you'll hear a grinding sound under the concrete, like stone rubbing against stone. If you're unlucky, you'll hear breathing. A long, slow inhale that rattles glass in nearby buildings. And if you're really unlucky, you'll see the eyes glow. Only for a second. Just enough to freeze you in place. Just enough to make your stomach twist and tell your legs to run. Because it's not just a statue, it never was. It was a marker, a warning, or maybe a promise. And now, it's hungry again. It stands out there in the desert like a bad joke. Just off US Route 90, west of Valentine, Texas. Middle of nowhere. Flat land, cracked dirt, and a wind that never seems to stop scraping the edges of everything. No shopping centers, no strip malls, no gas stations for miles. Just that one weird little box on the side of the road. Prada Marfa. People come from all over to see it. Influencers, photographers, drifters. They pull over, get out of their cars, and squint at it like they found some holy relic. A tiny fake boutique, gleaming like a glass tooth in the dust. The real Prada signed off on it. A permanent installation, they said. Art, they said. Fashion irony in the wild. It's sealed shut. No door, no working lights, just a display window, a handful of shoes and bags, and a single large mirror leaning against the back wall inside. But here's the thing. The mirror doesn't show your reflection. Not the way it should. Sometimes it shows you older, wrinkled, hair gone or grayed, skin sagging like wax left in the sun. Other times it shows you dead. Not just peacefully gone, but ruined. Eyes sunken, mouth full of dirt. Your own body lying stiff in a coffin you've never seen before. Or sometimes, in the very clothes you're wearing, slumped right there in the desert, flies gathering on your lips. And sometimes, it shows something else entirely. A version of you that's smiling, but not like you smile, too wide, too knowing, with eyes that don't blink and teeth too straight and too many. People think it's a trick of the light. They say it's the angle, or the sun, or maybe just exhaustion. But they always walk back to their car a little faster. They always check the back seat before they get in, and if they sleep that night, it's never easy. Then there are the shoes. 6 pairs of them, pristine, untouched, lined up like obedient children. They don't move while you're watching. But if you step away, just for a moment, something changes. A heel turned slightly, a buckle unfastened, a scuff where there wasn't one before. And once, someone swore they saw a single shoe tapping. Just once, light and slow, like it was waiting for something. The locals don't go near it, haven't for years. Old Man Deeks, who owns a ranch just east of it, tells a story he doesn't like repeating. Says one night in 2011, he saw a woman standing outside the installation. Midnight. No car, just standing there, her back to the road, staring into the glass. Her dress was wrong, something out of a different time. Maybe the 1930s, maybe older. Her hands didn't move. Her hair didn't blow in the wind. He honked. She didn't flinch. He stopped the truck, climbed out, called to her. Still nothing. He got within 15 feet when she turned around, and there was nothing behind her face. Just a smooth surface like porcelain, no eyes, no mouth, just blankness. And the mirror inside the installation cracked top to bottom with a sound like a scream made of glass. Deeks won't go within a mile of it now. Then there's the tourist couple from Dallas. They came out one August, took some photos, smiled for their Instagram stories. The girlfriend leaned in close to the mirror, trying to catch her reflection. The boyfriend snapped the pic, but in the photo, clear as day, she wasn't there. Not her face, not even her shadow. Just a space beside the mirror, completely empty, with one extra set of footprints in the dust. They broke up 3 days later. She wouldn't say why. He said she stopped speaking, just stopped. Sat by the window all day and watched for something that wasn't there. He moved back home. Said she still sends him drawings, mirror frames filled with scribbles of old, dead faces. None of them hers. And still, people keep coming. They park on the shoulder and laugh, snap their selfies, act like they've discovered some deep, clever joke about capitalism or culture or whatever the hell they think Prada Marfa is. But if they stay too long, they start to feel it. That tug in the stomach, the weight behind the eyes, that whisper in the wind that sounds almost like it's calling your name in your own voice. Just wrong. Some people don't leave. There have been reports. Cars found empty. Phone still plugged into the charger. Engine cold. No tracks away from the vehicle, no footprints. Nothing on the cameras either. Just the mirror, reflecting empty desert and a stillness that looks too deep to be natural. Like the land itself is holding its breath. A year ago, a maintenance worker came out to touch up the paint on the side of the structure. Harmless job, 2-hour drive, never made it back. His truck was found with the keys still in the ignition, ladder still strapped to the roof. Inside the installation, the mirror had new fingerprints on it. Dozens of them. All smudged into the glass like something had been trying to get through. Nobody touches it now, not even the artists. And yet it still shines. No dust on the glass, no sand on the floor. The display never fades, no sun damage, no decay. It's like time refuses to touch it. Like the moment you look at your own face, or what you think is your own face, something in there looks back. Something old, something still, something waiting. And sometimes, if you press your ear to the mirror, you can hear footsteps behind you. 1 step, 2, 3, and then nothing. But you'll never see who's there, because it's always standing just behind your shoulder, out of frame. right where your reflection should be, smiling, waiting for you to stay just a little too long, and maybe, someday, not leave at all. If you're ever passing through Cedar Creek, Texas, little more than a speed bump between Bastrop and nowhere, someone might tell you to pull over and see the giant squirrel. It's just off the main drag near the Dollar General and a barbecue joint that still serves peach cobbler in styrofoam bowls. You'll see it before you even park. 12 feet tall, chest puffed out like some cartoon superhero, an oversized acorn clutched tight in its paws. Big eyes, buck teeth. A red bandana tied like it's the town sheriff. You'll laugh. Everyone laughs. That's part of the trap. The thing is fiberglass, maybe concrete underneath, and folks come for miles just to take pictures of it. It's in wedding photos, senior portraits, even 2 separate Christmas cards I know of. During the day, it's harmless. Campy, Americana with a touch of small-town charm. But as the sun starts dropping behind the loblolly pines, that squirrel changes. Not literally, no. Don't think this is a werewolf tale. It's more about a feeling. The way the air grows thick and the birds stop chirping all at once. How the wind dies like something is holding its breath. The silence that creeps in and wraps around your neck, soft at first, then tighter. And the squirrel just stands there, smiling. They built it in 1983. Back when towns all over America were throwing up giant roadside statues to keep the tourists rolling in. Paul Bunyan, blue cows, jackrabbits with sunglasses. Cedar Creek decided to go with a squirrel. Seemed innocent enough. They held a town vote on it. The statue was meant to celebrate the Nut Festival, which isn't as dirty as it sounds, though the kids certainly got mileage out of the joke. But even back then, folks knew better than to hang around too long after dusk. They remembered the land before the statue, before the Dollar General, before the 2-lane highway was even paved. That patch of ground had history and not the good kind. People called it Hollow Glen, and nobody built on it. Not because of the soil or the water table, but because things didn't grow there. Trees bent the wrong way, animals wouldn't cross it. And kids, especially the ones with a little sensitivity, would cry just walking through it. Long before white settlers, the Tonkawa avoided it, called it Niskatomi Hata, which one anthropologist translated as where the watchers dig. When you pressed them, they said the forest had little spirits that could steal your thoughts if you stayed too long. Not ghosts, not demons. Something older, something with claws and cleverness. The tribe moved their camps far from there. And even after they were driven out, the stories stuck around. In 1902, when the railroad pushed through, a work crew tried to clear that spot for a siding station. They gave up after 2 men went missing. One of them, Levi Choate, was found 3 days later, wedged in a hollow tree, eyes missing, mouth stuffed with acorns. The doctor said it must have been a bear. But no bear leaves teeth marks like that. Tiny, in rows, like something with dozens of fingers had been nibbling. They left that ground alone for decades after that, until the town needed money. So they paved it, cleared the trees, and dropped a 12-foot grinning squirrel right in the middle of it like it had always belonged there. At first, it worked. Visitors came, kids loved it. They'd climb up its tail, pose beside the acorn, hang plastic leis around its neck in summer. But then, the dream started. People who lived nearby began waking up with scratch marks on their backs and pine needles on their floors. One woman swore she saw a trail of tiny footprints, like baby hands, leading from her back porch to her toddler's crib. Others heard chewing in the walls, chewing that stopped the second you flipped on the lights. The town chalked it up to hysteria. Too much Stephen King on TV, maybe, but the disappearances were harder to ignore. In 1991, a teenager named Will Baxter vanished right after prom. His tux jacket was found hanging from the squirrel's paw. No blood, no signs of struggle. Just a pile of cracked acorn shells around the base. Everyone said he'd run off to Austin. Maybe he had, or maybe something under the dirt had reached up and taken him. By 2002, they'd stopped holding festivals at night. The Nut Parade became a daytime event. No one officially said why, but if you asked around, you'd hear stories. People walking by the statue at twilight said they saw the squirrel's head tilt, just slightly, like it was watching. Others said its paws moved, that the acorn it held, once smooth and pristine, had grown dark patches, like something had been chewing on it from the inside. And then there was the boy. It was 2009. A 6-year-old wandered too close just after sundown. His mom was talking to a neighbor, looked away for 2 minutes. When she turned back, he was gone. No scream, no rustling, just gone. They found his toy car at the statue's base, wedged beneath one of the fiberglass claws. The town sealed off the area for 2 weeks, claimed it was for structural integrity testing. But after that, they posted a hand-painted sign. Park closes at 6 p.m. I visited Cedar Creek last summer, stayed with a friend whose cousin used to be the groundskeeper. He told me not to go see the squirrel after dark. I asked him why. He didn't give me the usual folklore. He just looked at me, dead in the eye, and said, "They don't forget. They remember what we did to their land, the little ones under the soil. That thing up there, maybe it was supposed to be a statue, but they've made it something else now. Something alive." I laughed it off, went anyway. Stood there at 8:15 p.m., just as the light started fading, camera in hand. At first, nothing happened. I even made a joke to myself, what a waste of gas. But then the wind died, and something cracked beneath the grass. Not a twig, more like a shell. Like something opening. And then I heard it. Not a growl, not a whisper, just a soft, rhythmic chittering. Like tiny teeth working their way through wood and bone and memory. It came from the base of the statue, from inside it. I turned and ran. Didn't stop until I hit the car. Didn't sleep right for a week. So go ahead, take the picture, snap a selfie, make a TikTok. But if you feel the hairs on your arms stand up, if you hear the chittering, if the statue's eyes seem just a little too glassy, don't say I didn't warn you, because some things don't forget. And the squirrels under Cedar Creek, they remember everything. They built the world's largest shovel in Bowie, Texas, back in '83. Put it up as a tribute to the old mining days, back when men hauled coal and iron out of the earth with their backs bent like question marks and their lungs full of grit. The shovel's all steel, painted a flat silver that flakes like old skin in the sun. 32 feet tall, 20 wide, anchored deep into a slab of poured concrete at the edge of town. There's a little plaque at the base that reads, "In honor of the men who dug deep." But no one talks about what it really dug up. Before it was a statue, it was a machine. The machine, actually. Unit number 79, according to the faded mining records, operated by a man named Carson Weller. That shovel was brought in for one of the final digs at the old Bowie quarry in the summer of 1962. It was supposed to be a simple job. Finish scraping the bottom of Shaft C, pack it up, and move the operation down to Houston. But something went wrong. They weren't more than 100 feet deeper than they'd ever gone before when the shovel struck something that didn't crunch like rock or clay. It rang, like it had hit metal, or worse, bone. The reports were vague, if not outright doctored. But according to the old-timers, Carson climbed down into the pit after the strike. Took a flashlight, didn't wait for backup. He was down there almost 2 hours. When they finally hauled him back up, he was curled in the bucket of the shovel like a fetus, clutching his hard hat and laughing so hard he coughed blood. He never spoke again, not a single word. They institutionalized him in Wichita Falls, where he lived for another 19 years. Scratched circles into the wall of his room with his fingernails, which grew long and yellow from neglect. When the nurses tried to cut them, he'd scream. Not words, just a high, grating sound like a machine that won't shut off. Nobody ever saw what he found. The company closed Shaft C the next day and filled it in with concrete, claimed it was too unstable to continue. The entire quarry was shuttered within the year, but the shovel stayed. The company didn't want it anymore, said it was too heavy to move, too costly to salvage, so Bowie kept it. Someone got the bright idea to stand it upright on a concrete base, turn it into a local monument, paint it, add a plaque, turn something industrial into something wholesome. For the town, for the tourists. Only problem is, it never stopped humming. You can't hear it during the day. The traffic masks it and the sun seems to hold it back. But at night, if you stand real close, you can feel it in your molars. A low, deep vibration, like a far-off engine or something. Breathing. And sometimes, just sometimes, you can hear it whisper. No one knows what it says. Not really. But a few teenagers have gone out there with recorders and come back pale, shaking. One boy, Brady Collins, went out there on a dare last year. Stayed the night beside it in a sleeping bag with a GoPro on. In the morning, his bag was there, but Brady wasn't. Just a long scrape in the dirt where something had dragged his body, slow and straight, toward the old quarry fence line. The camera didn't catch much, just the dark, and the sound, that hum again. Only this time, it was louder, almost like chanting. They found Brady 3 days later, naked, curled up inside the rusted bucket of the old digger like Carson had been all those years ago. Nails shredded, eyes open and bone dry, still breathing, but not there. He hasn't spoken since. Doctors say he's in a dissociative fugue state, but his mother says different. She swears he talks in his sleep, just a little. Whispers things that don't sound like English. Names no one recognizes. Places that don't exist on any map. And here's the kicker. Someone broke into the town hall last month and stole the original mining logs for Shaft C. They only took the pages from July 1962. Left everything else behind. No cameras saw anything. Doors weren't forced. It was like someone had a key, or knew how to move without being seen. The ground around the shovel has started to crack. Little fissures in the concrete that spread more each week. City maintenance filled them once, but they opened again. Wider this time. A geologist they brought in, just a grad student from Dallas, said it was soil shift. But his eyes didn't believe it. He left that afternoon and never came back. Some nights, people say they see something standing beside the shovel. Not a man, not exactly. Too tall, too thin, like bones stretched wrong under paper skin. No face, or maybe too many faces. Dogs won't go near it. Birds don't nest on it. Not even spiders spin webs in the shadow it casts. And the strangest part, it doesn't cast a shadow anymore. Not since last October, not once. The sun hits it just like always, but the ground stays blank beneath it, like the light goes around it. Or maybe like the statue isn't really there anymore, just the shell, the vessel. Whatever the shovel dug up, it wasn't dead. Not then, and sure as hell not now. Some places feel wrong at night, even when they're supposed to be funny in the daylight. That Eiffel Tower replica in Paris, Texas is one of them. People always laugh about it. The red cowboy hat on top, the rusted steel legs. the way it leans just slightly to the left like it's had one too many beers. It was built to make tourists smile, give them something to take a photo with on their cross-country drive. Look, Ma, it's Paris, but not the one with croissants and berets. This one's got barbecue and broken things. Locals don't talk much about it after dark. They smile polite when visitors ask, but they change the subject real quick if you mention it past sundown. And they sure as hell don't like to be reminded of the photo. The one a woman named Carly Madison took back in July of 2019. She was a photographer from Georgia, passing through on her way to New Mexico. She thought it'd be cute to snap a picture of the other Eiffel Tower under a full moon. She parked her rental car around midnight, just past the cemetery, stepped out into the hot, still air with her old Nikon, set it to long exposure, focused, clicked. She only took one shot. She didn't look at it right away, didn't even think much about it until a few days later, when she got back home and developed the roll in her own darkroom. That's when she saw it. There weren't one or two Eiffel Towers in the photo. There were three. The original replica stood front and center, same as always. The cowboy hat gleamed in the moonlight like fresh blood. Behind it stood another one, taller, darker, twisted like rebar pulled from a fire. It had no hat, but something like a mouth opened halfway up its side, gaping wide with jagged iron teeth. And behind that, a third one, a silhouette almost, barely visible except for the fact that it had legs like trees and seemed to shimmer like heat coming off asphalt. But the worst part wasn't the towers. It was what was crawling up out of the ground in front of them. Carly stared at the print until her fingers shook. The thing clawing its way from the dirt had no real shape, not at first, like shadow and muscle and smoke tangled together. But the more she looked, the more she knew. It had too many arms, too many elbows bending the wrong way. Its hands looked human, only they had more fingers than a person should have. 9, maybe 10 on each one. Long and flat and slick, like skin left underwater too long. And its head, God help her, its head looked like her. Not exactly, not a reflection, not a twin, but something close. The suggestion of her eyes, her cheekbones, only stretched, hollow, dead. Carly burned the photo, or at least tried to. Said the flames turned green for a second. Said it smelled like hot iron and raw meat. But the photo didn't blacken. It curled up and popped, like something inside was trying to escape. She mailed the negative to a friend in Dallas, a guy she used to date. He ran a photo lab. He went missing 3 days later. His apartment door was open. His bathtub was filled with soil. No sign of him. Just one thing scratched into the tile over the sink, over and over in tiny, frantic lines. It comes when there's 3. Carly tried to forget, tried to move on, but she started dreaming of metal, of teeth made of steel, of something rusted and ancient crawling up the legs of towers that weren't supposed to exist. She drove back to Paris, Texas in October that year, checked into a motel on the edge of town, told the clerk she was visiting family. She walked out to the tower just before midnight, holding a shovel and a flashlight. They found the flashlight still on the next morning, lying in the grass. The batteries were dead, but the light was still glowing faint and red, like it was bleeding. They never found Carly, only her camera. It was sitting at the base of the tower, lens pointed at the dirt. There were no footprints, no drag marks, just a single depression in the soil, like something had pushed up from underneath. People talk about it now, quietly, only to each other. They say the tower leans a little more every year, like it's being pulled from below. They say some nights when the sky is clear and the moon is full, you can see shapes in the shadows behind it. Thin lines that shouldn't be there. outlines of other towers, flickering like memories or warnings. And there are rumors that the ground beneath that tower isn't just Texas dirt, that there's a hole under it, deep and cold and alive, stretching down into places the world forgot. That the real tower, the original replica, as crazy as that sounds, was swallowed up years ago. That what stands there now is a lid, a cover, a cap on a wound that never healed. And lately, folks have noticed the red cowboy hat on top is starting to fade. Just slightly. No one knows what happens when it turns completely white. But the ground trembles sometimes. Just a little. And last month, a boy from Hugo took a selfie in front of the tower. He posted it on Instagram. There were 3 shadows behind him, and a 4th just starting to crawl out of the ground. Drive long enough through the Rio Grande Valley, and sooner or later, you'll come across Hidalgo, a town that smells like sugarcane in the summer and rot in the winter. Blink, and you'll miss it. But just off the main road, mounted on a thick metal pole above the town welcome sign, there's something that always catches the eye of travelers. Something that doesn't belong in the cotton fields or against the flat stretch of blue sky. It's massive, gaudy, painted yellow and black, the world's largest killer bee. Built in the early 1990s, the thing was supposed to celebrate Hidalgo's history with beekeeping. That's the official story anyway. Something to draw in tourists, a photo op for kids, a mascot to put the town on the map. The fiberglass bee is about 10 feet long, its wings stretched in mid-flight, like it's charging out of the air to sting the earth. From a distance, it's a joke, a cartoon. But get closer, look into the eyes, those glossy, empty black eyes, and something shifts. It doesn't feel like art, it feels like a warning. The locals have another story. They don't talk about it loud. Not in public, not to strangers, but you hang around long enough. Spend your nights at Rudy's Diner, ask the right questions at the gas station, have a few beers with the old-timers on someone's porch, and you'll hear it. They say the bee marks the resting place of a queen. Not a statue, not a symbol, a seal, a tombstone for something that still sleeps under the earth. Something that was here before the Spanish, before the tribes, before even the river carved its path through the dust. They call her La Reina Negra, the Black Queen. No one knows what she is exactly, spirit, creature, god. But they say she lives in the hive beneath the dirt, deep in the limestone and honeycomb that stretches like cancer beneath Hidalgo. Her children crawl through the cracks. Her thoughts come on the wind. And every year she takes something back, kids mostly. The paper blames the river. Strong current, they say. Wandered too far. Must have been coyotes. But the river doesn't hum in the middle of the night. The coyotes don't leave behind shoes filled with wax or fences crusted with dry honey like something had bled sugar. There was a boy once, Michael Lucian, age 9. Vanished in 2007. His bike was found leaned neatly against the bee's pole, kickstand down, bell still warm from the sun. His mother swore she saw a swarm hovering above the statue that day. But not bees, she said, bodies. Thin, twitching, flying things with arms and mandibles. They found a trail of boot prints leading from the bike to the sugarcane field. Halfway down, the prints stopped, like something had plucked him straight from the air. And it's not just children. A Border Patrol agent, Sammy Rivas, went missing during a night shift. Radioed in about a low-flying swarm. His last words were strange, he said. I think I can hear her singing. They found his truck the next day, parked outside the bee statue, door open, the inside slick with honey that had hardened like amber. The bee statue? Still clean, no signs of tampering. But when they inspected the base, they found a strange warmth radiating from the metal pole. No reason for it, no wiring, no lights, just heat, like the earth itself was breathing slow and shallow through that one spot. Then there's the sound. Locals say if you park under the B at exactly 3:33 a.m., and only then, you'll hear the hum. Not a normal hum, not a nest buzz or a wing flutter. It's a low, wet vibration, like something enormous is shifting its weight below your feet. And sometimes, if you listen closely, you'll hear whispers in between the pulses. Names. First names, usually. The names of people who haven't gone missing yet. Some say they heard their own names and left town the next day. Others stayed and disappeared within the month. There's a reason no one walks alone past that statue at night. Even the mayor, a tough old bastard named Guillermo Sanchez, refused to have it taken down. A reporter once asked why they didn't just remove it, burn it maybe. He just shook his head and said, "It's not there for us. It's there to keep her down. You remove that pole, and we all go with it." That was the last interview Guillermo ever gave. He was found on his porch a week later, body covered in tiny stings, thousands of them, though there were no bees found nearby. His skin was so swollen they had to use dental records to confirm it was him. His mouth was filled with honey. The new mayor doesn't give interviews. People still pass through Hidalgo. They still take pictures with the bee. Tourists still laugh. The fiberglass still gleams, and the wings still tremble a little in the wind. But the locals don't laugh, not even the kids, because they know. The bee isn't just some roadside curiosity. It's a marker, a warning, a seal, and the queen sleeps lightly, waiting for the next name, waiting for the hive to open again. They built the blue whale of Catoosa in the summer of '72, right off Old Route 66, back when folks still believed roadside attractions could save a dying town. Hugh Davis, a retired zookeeper with a soft spot for whimsy and a heart condition he liked to ignore, said he made it for his grandkids. But anyone who knew the land before it was a family picnic stop said that Pond was never right. The dirt was too soft. The trees leaned inward like they were eavesdropping, and the frogs never croaked after dark. Even the birds avoided it, like they knew something was under the surface, watching. The whale's big, dumb grin is a fixture now. Bright blue fiberglass, 20 feet long, hollow inside, with a slippery slide curling off its back like a lazy tongue. It looks harmless, even friendly. Kids used to crawl inside it in the daytime, parents snapping photos while mosquitoes danced in the humid Oklahoma air. It's been repainted so many times that the original hue is probably long buried under layers of cheap latex. But the eyes, those wide white cartoon eyes, haven't dulled a bit. Always open, always staring. Locals say the trouble didn't start with the whale, it started with the land. Way back in the 1930s, when Catoosa was still coal smoke and rattlesnake country, there was a woman named Eliza Harrow who lived in a rotting clapboard house near the pond's edge. People whispered that she wasn't right in the head. Her husband died in a quarry collapse, left her with a child, little Mary, just 3 years old, and no money. They say Eliza started talking to shadows after that. Sat on her porch with a butcher knife in her lap and stared into the water like it owed her something. One July evening, neighbors heard screaming, then silence. The sheriff found Eliza waist-deep in the pond, her dress clinging like seaweed, cradling her dead daughter in her arms. She was singing. When he pulled her away, she bit him on the cheek so hard she ripped skin. They say she died in an asylum, but no one remembers where she was buried. No one looked too hard. When Hugh bought the property in the '60s, he said he'd never heard of the story. but his wife Zelta had. She begged him to build the whale somewhere else. Said the pond made her teeth ache, gave her headaches that lasted for days. Hugh smiled and kept hammering, even when workers said their tools disappeared overnight, or that something kept knocking over their ladders. He chalked it up to teenagers, or raccoons. Then came the first drowning. A boy named Caleb, 7 years old, slid off the whale's tongue and never came back up. Clear, sunny day, dozens of witnesses. 1 minute he was splashing around, the next he was gone. Divers searched for hours and found nothing but thick, black mud that clung to them like paste. They dragged the pond a second time and found his body 3 days later wedged deep in a root system beneath the whale, like something had pulled him down and kept him. No one blamed the whale, not yet. It wasn't until the third or fourth time, a girl named Lacey, then a teen couple who'd been drinking, that people stopped calling it an accident. The water never boiled, never stirred. It just took them. And when it gave them back, their eyes were always open, always wide. By then, the paint on the whale had begun to peel in strips. The fiberglass buckled at the jawline like it was straining to open wider. Zelta refused to go near it. She covered all the mirrors in the house, told Hugh she could see Mary's reflection in them sometimes, dripping wet and grinning with the whale's stupid cartoon smile. Hugh died in 91. Heart finally gave out. The whale fell into disrepair for a while, vines creeping up its sides, graffiti scrawled over its flanks like tattoos on a drunk. Kids kept daring each other to swim out after dark. Some didn't come back. The sheriff never made a fuss, just wrote it up as missing teens. Happens everywhere. But in Catoosa, it always happened near that pond, and then the water started turning black at night. Not dirty, not muddy, black. Thick, light-swallowing tar that stank like rusted metal and rotting flowers. Someone tried to test it once, an amateur paranormal team with a YouTube channel. They left their cameras rolling overnight. When they came back, their batteries were drained, their tapes blank. One of them, a girl named Rena, stopped speaking for 6 months. When she finally did, all she said was, "It watches from the smile." Now, people just avoid it. The city tried to restore it, turn it into a historical marker. They even drained the pond once, but the hole refilled within a day. Not rain, no nearby stream, it just filled. The workers said the mud bubbled and popped like something breathing down there. One man quit on the spot. Said he heard a child laughing under the water and it called him Daddy. Every few years, someone still disappears. Their names fade. But the pond remembers. The whale keeps smiling. And at night, when the fog rolls in, folks swear they see ripples even when there's no wind. Sometimes, if you listen real close, you can hear footsteps inside the whale. Wet, slow, dragging footsteps that don't match the echo of your own. And if you're the only one out there, just before the dark swallows the last sliver of moon, you might see a small handprint appear on the inside of the whale's mouth. Still dripping, still waiting, because whatever Eliza pulled from the water that night, it wasn't her daughter, and whatever's inside that whale now, it isn't fiberglass anymore. You'd think something like the Corn Monument of Lubbock would be harmless. Corn's supposed to be cheerful, right? Americana stuff, county fairs, yellow kernels, kids running through mazes with sticky fingers and red cheeks. It's the kind of thing folks build when they want to bring a town together. That's what they said back in '83, the year they built it the first time. A big tower of stalks, 30 feet high, lashed together with wire and wood, dressed up with pumpkins at the base and hay bales in a tidy circle. A centerpiece for the Fall Harvest Festival, complete with a banner that read, "Lubbock grows together." Families took pictures with it. old ladies in sweaters handed out cider near the base. Kids climbed up on the hay and dared each other to knock on the wooden door they nailed into the bottom, just for show. And then came the first face. They didn't see it at first. Not until the end of the festival, when they were taking it down. One of the volunteers, a high school kid named Micah, climbed up with a chainsaw to start cutting the stalks free. Got about 10 feet up when he started screaming. Not shouting, screaming. He came down like his skin was on fire, threw the saw, ran to his truck, and peeled out of the lot like something was chasing him. Left his gloves and everything. When his dad finally caught up to him that night, Micah wouldn't talk. Not at first, just shook, rocked back and forth. Finally whispered what he saw. A face in the corn, screaming, just screaming. They chalked it up to sunstroke or nerves, festival stress, teen imagination. But then someone went back and looked. Not with a crowd, just one of the crew. A guy named Bernie worked in maintenance. He brought a flashlight after sunset, walked around the base with a thermos of coffee, and got about halfway around before he stopped cold. There, halfway up the side, was a section of stalks that didn't belong. The corn was twisted, darker, molded into something unnatural, and in the middle of it, a face. Long, stretched, like someone had been caught mid-yell and frozen into the husks. Its eyes bulged. Its mouth was open wider than it should have been, like the jaw was unhinged. There were no teeth, just darkness. A black pit shaped like a scream. Bernie didn't touch it, just backed away and told no one. Next year they built the monument again. Tradition, they said. Small town pride. Nobody wanted to be the one to say no. And again, just before teardown, someone spotted it. A new face. This time, it was a woman. Recognizable. One of the vendors who had gone missing 2 weeks earlier. Her name was Kathy Dell. Sold handmade soaps and candles out of a little wooden stall near the east entrance. No one saw her leave. She just vanished. Her booth stayed untouched until the last day. Her purse, her folding chair, everything still there. But her face, her exact face, was screaming in the corn near the top of the monument. Same twisted expression. Same black pit for a mouth. The town got quiet after that. They didn't cancel the monument, not yet, but people stopped going near it alone. The kids wouldn't climb the hay anymore. The cider stand was moved closer to the parking lot, and folks who did walk past it, some said they could hear breathing. Slow, wet, like something big was just behind the stalks, waiting. In 1991, they tried to stop building it altogether. The new festival chairman was a guy named Wes Donaldson. Outsider, moved in from Amarillo, thought the whole corn tower thing was stupid and wasteful. He held a vote, said it wasn't worth the man-hours, claimed the field should be paved for extra parking instead. The town didn't fight him too hard. A few folks muttered. The old-timers gave him the evil eye at church, but they let it slide. Maybe some part of them was glad. Wes disappeared 3 days before the festival, just gone. His office was empty, his house locked from the inside. His dog was found pacing the front yard, howling like it had seen a ghost. People searched the field just to be thorough, even though he wasn't the type to go walking through corn at night. They found his car 4 days later, buried, straight down, like something had pulled it into the earth and packed the soil tight around it. Just the antenna sticking out, bent at a weird angle. The driver's door was open when they dug it out. His body was never found. After that, the town brought the monument back. Like clockwork, like they had to. Nobody said it out loud, but everyone understood. It wasn't just tradition anymore. It was obligation, insurance, a kind of dark ritual hidden behind bales of hay and smiling scarecrows. And still, Every year, another face appears. Sometimes it's someone who's already dead. Sometimes it's someone who hasn't gone missing yet. And once, only once, it was someone still alive. A man named Kevin Ross. He worked at the local news station, covering the festival for a puff piece. He laughed when he saw the face in the corn that looked just like him. Until the next day, when they found his body in the field, curled up tight, with dirt in his lungs and his jaw broken wide open, like it had been forced into that screaming shape. The corn doesn't rot, even in winter. Even when the snow falls and the temperature drops below freezing, the stalks that made up the monument stay green. Lush. Too green. The kind of green that doesn't belong in December. Some folks say the roots grow down all year long, that the land beneath it is hollow, alive, hungry. They don't build the tower in the same spot anymore. They rotate it, move it around, but the field always knows. It pulls from wherever they plant the stakes, and when it wants a face, it takes one. Some say it started because someone built the first monument on top of an old well, a well that wasn't supposed to be there. Not water, but something else, something deeper. A shaft straight down into the part of the world where things crawl and scream and never stop. And now, if you stand close enough on a cold night, you can hear them. Not just the faces, all of them, beneath the roots. Screaming, yes, but also whispering, begging you to join them. Just one more face. That's all it needs. Until next year. They say every town used to have a muffler man. Big fiberglass giants standing outside auto shops and tire joints, built in the 60s and 70s to grab drivers' attention before billboards took over. Most of them look the same. Dopey grin, square jaw, arms molded to hold an oversized muffler or tire. Americana kitsch. But the one out in El Paso, just off the I-10 before the desert really swallows the world whole, wasn't like the others. They called him the Monster Muffler Man. Taller, meaner, rougher around the edges, like whoever built him was angry while they did it. Nobody knew where he came from exactly. No company ever claimed him. He just showed up one day in 1981 outside Sal's auto service, standing crooked on a concrete slab, one fist clenched, the other arm reaching toward nothing. His face wasn't smiling. It wasn't even finished. Just a blank stretch of fiberglass where the eyes should have been. No paint, no pupils. Like a statue waiting for its soul. They said Sal picked him up cheap from a scrapyard in Arizona. But when people pressed him, he'd change the subject. He used to joke that he never remembered hauling the damn thing in, only that one day it was there, bolted to the ground like it had grown out of it. The odd thing was, Sal's business started booming after that. Trucks pulled in like they were magnetized. Even people who didn't need repairs stopped to stare. Something about the statue. It drew your eye, even if it made your stomach turn a little. Kids cried when they got too close to it. Animals wouldn't go near it at all. And then came the eyes. Around 1987, folks started saying they'd seen red pinpricks glowing in the statue's blank face. Not all the time, just at night. Especially when it was foggy, which didn't happen much in El Paso. But when it did, the fog clung to the base of that statue like it knew what was hiding there. People who parked near it said their car radios buzzed. Others swore they heard whispers, garbled, metallic, like something inside the statue was trying to speak but had forgotten how human mouths worked. Sal stopped joking about it. One night in '89, a long-haul trucker named Tom Beasley came flying into the police station, eyes wide, shirt soaked in sweat, like he'd run through fire. He said the statue had stepped off its base, not just moved, walked, followed him. He said he'd pulled over to check a tire just a mile down from the shop, and when he looked up, there it was, standing in the middle of the road, arms stretched out like it wanted to grab him. The lights of his truck caught the eyes, blood red, pulsing. He floored it, drove for a full mile before looking in the mirror, and the damn thing was still behind him. He said it didn't move like a machine. No gears, no jerking, smooth, too smooth. Like it was gliding on something unseen. He only lost it after crossing into Las Cruces. After that, he quit trucking altogether. Most people didn't believe him, of course. Called it a hallucination, heat stroke, whatever made them sleep better. But a few remembered that Sal's auto had been closed that night. No lights, no cameras. Just that giant thing standing alone in the dark, waiting. After Tom's story hit the local news, other tales came in. Quiet ones. A waitress at the diner next door said she saw shadows that didn't match up with any light source. Long limbs cast across the parking lot even when the statue was perfectly still. A stray dog vanished right under its legs. Leash snapped clean in two. Kids dared each other to touch it at midnight. One girl came back with her hand burned. She said it bit her, but there were no teeth. Just a raw patch of skin that didn't heal right for weeks, like it had been stung with hot steel. Then Sal disappeared, left the shop unlocked, lights off, his truck still parked outside. No note, no trace. The only thing different? The statue's face. The fiberglass where the eyes had been, smooth and empty for nearly a decade, had two deep sockets now. And in those sockets, someone had painted tiny red circles. Only, no one admitted to doing it. The shop got sold. The new owner tried to take the statue down, but every time they brought in a crane, something went wrong. Machines failed, wires snapped. One guy fell from the platform and broke both legs. He said something pushed him. Said he heard a voice just before he fell. It said, "Don't look at me." Eventually, they left it up, built a fence around it, put up a sign, closed after dark. The paint's faded now, and the arms are rusting at the joints, but it still stands, still watching. And some nights when the air gets still and the heat dies just a little, truckers say they see something tall and thin moving along the highway, walking just outside the reach of the headlights. They say if you break down anywhere near Sal's old place, don't get out. Lock your doors, don't look behind you, because the monster muffler man never had eyes. But he does now, and he remembers who stared too long. They built the giant spur in Elampasas as a roadside gimmick, a picture stop for travelers crawling along Highway 281. Supposed to bring attention to the little towns people used to drive through before interstates turned everything into fast lanes and forgotten exits. It's 35 feet tall, weighs over a ton, all solid steel, crafted to look like a cowboy spur, complete with a 10-foot rowel that juts out like a saw blade from hell. The thing's planted in a gravel lot next to a faded gift shop that sells Pycon brittle and wind chimes made from beer cans. There's a plaque that says it's a symbol of Texas grit. Folks take photos in front of it, smile, and drive on. But no one stays near it after dark. Not anymore. They say the land it was built on used to belong to a rancher named Clive Whitaker back in the 1890s. Clive wasn't just any cattleman. He was cruel in that special kind of way that old stories don't sugarcoat. Beat his horses until they limped, shot his ranch hands if they sassed him, and branded his livestock with a custom iron spur, its tips wicked and curved like claws. They said he never smiled, never prayed, never once buried the bodies of what he killed, beast or man, just left them out in the sun to rot. People whispered he made deals, that he'd ride out alone into the hills at night, leave gifts in stone circles, come back with full herds no one saw him buy. Then, one summer, his ranch went up in flames. Burned so hot it turned bone into ash. Nothing left but scorched earth and that iron spur of his, still half buried in the dirt where the barn had been. A boy found it years later while clearing brush. Said it burned his skin when he touched it, even though the sun was down and the wind was cool. He dropped it, ran home, and wouldn't stop screaming until his mother threw it down a well. Nobody knows how the damn thing came back up, but a welder in Lampasas claimed he found it in a pawn shop in Temple. Rusted, but still sharp. Thought it'd be funny to blow it up big, turn it into some tourist bait. Welded a copy using the original as a base. Cemented it in good. Didn't ask questions when the nights got louder, when the wind started sounding like hooves thundering over stone. He left town 2 weeks later. Never said why. Left behind his house, his truck, his dog, everything. Then came Henry Ballard. Henry was a retired trucker who lived in a trailer about half a mile from the spur. Didn't believe in ghost stories, called them hillbilly bedtime tales. But he saw it one night through his living room window. The spur was moving. Spinning. Not fast. Slow. Like a carousel made of nightmares. There was no wind, no motor. Just that huge steel rowel turning in silence under the stars. He walked out there in his socks, beer in hand, daring it to move again. It stopped when he got close. He reached out, slapped his palm right on the side of the rowel like it had insulted his mama. Screamed like a stuck pig. Neighbors said they found him crawling up the gravel road hours later, sobbing and mumbling. His hand was blackened with burn marks shaped like hooves, 4 of them, pressed deep into the flesh, like something small and cloven had danced across his skin while it was still red hot. The doctors said it looked like contact burns, but the pattern made no sense. Henry never spoke again. Just rocked back and forth in his hospital bed, whispering one word over and over: forged. Teenagers dare each other to touch it now. Most don't. One did. Girl named Alora King. Smart kid, honor student, used to read books about ancient myths and dead languages. She pressed her fingertips to the steel and said it felt like ice at first, then like it was pulling her in. She yanked her hand back before it burned her, but her fingernails turned black within the hour. Came off in her sleep. She started drawing circles after that, spirals with sharp edges. Filled her journals with words no one could read. When her parents flipped through them, one of the pages cut her father's finger. Just paper, but it sliced clean to the bone. And then there's the sound. People who live within a mile of the spur claim they hear it at night. Metal groaning, scraping, the slow grind of iron against iron. Some say it's just the wind. Others say it's the wheel turning, even though it's welded solid. But some claim they've seen it move. Not in a blur, not in secret. In plain sight. Just spinning slow, like time itself has loosened its grip on it. And there are the hoof prints, not horse-sized, smaller, like a goat's, but too deep, too far apart. Burned into the gravel, sometimes into the asphalt. Always appearing in sets of 4, always leading toward the spur, but never away from it. Last winter, a local preacher came out to bless the thing. Said it was blasphemy to let something so foul sit like a throne in the open. He laid hands on the base and started to pray. Witnesses say he seized up mid-sentence, fell to his knees, and vomited black bile. Said he saw something sitting atop it, something wearing a man's skin wrong. He left town that night. Took nothing but his Bible and his keys. The city tried to remove it once. Hired a crew with torches and cranes. First guy burned his hands before he ever touched it. second had a seizure before stepping out of the truck. The third guy never showed up. His wife said he drove into the hills and never came back. They gave up. Now, the spur stands untouched, rust running like blood down its sides, its rowel catching moonlight like a blade ready to spin. No one maintains it. The gravel's grown over, the gift shop's boarded up. But it's still there, waiting, and every so often, if you get close enough, you can feel it vibrating. Like it remembers what it was made for, like it's hungry for hooves again. The haunted rest stop outside Junction, Texas, doesn't have a name. Not on any sign anyway. Just a green exit marker that reads, Rest Area, 2 miles, like 100 others along I-10. Folks who don't know better pull off there all the time. Stretch their legs, use the clean bathrooms. Maybe grab a soda from the vending machine next to the ancient picnic table with that one busted bench. But the ones who do know, the truckers, the night drivers, the long haulers who've seen too many strange things between El Paso and Houston, they don't stop unless they have to. The rest stop looks normal, yeah, real normal. That's part of the problem, too normal. White tile bathrooms with mirrors above every sink. No graffiti, no trash, no stink of piss or cheap soap. The vending machines are always full. And the lights? Fluorescent, bright as hospital surgery, even at 3 in the morning. But something about it feels wrong. The way a tooth might feel just before it goes bad. It looks fine, but you can feel the rot setting in. There's no cell service there. That's the first thing folks notice. Not just a dip in bars, nothing. Like the signal dies mid-air. And the GPS, it doesn't just glitch, it changes. Routes redraw themselves, distances flip. One trucker named Dean Kravitz swore his map said he was 22 miles south of Denver when he pulled in. He was hauling oranges out of Phoenix. He hadn't crossed the New Mexico border yet. Dean quit driving 2 weeks later. But the stories don't stop there, not even close. They say, if you go into the men's room at night, alone, and you wash your hands, you won't be alone for long. Not because someone walks in, because someone appears. You'll see him in the mirror behind you. A man in a yellow safety vest. Tall, thin, pale, but he's not doing what you're doing, not mirroring. His eyes move wrong, his hands twitch. He's always just a little out of sync. Sometimes he smiles, and sometimes he doesn't go away when you turn around. There's a woman, too. She shows up in the stall beside yours. Doesn't make a sound. No footsteps, no flush. But the shadow beneath the door grows longer than it should be. Wider. You'll see boots, pointed the wrong way. And if you wait too long, you'll hear her whisper, "Can I come through now?" If you answer, if you even think about answering, your own reflection starts bleeding from the mouth. Not gushing, just a trickle. Enough to let you know the mirror isn't just glass anymore. One guy, a kid fresh out of the army, heading to San Antonio, stopped there last April. He told his girlfriend over the phone he was just peeing, be out in a sec, left the car running, never came back. They found his boots sitting neatly beside the sink. His phone was in the trash. Screen cracked clean in half like it had been snapped by something strong and angry. The only thing playing on the screen when they recovered the data, his camera app, a still image of his face. Only it wasn't his face. The eyes were too black, the skin too smooth, like something wearing his skin didn't quite get it right. Locals claim the land was cursed before the highway even existed. That back before there was pavement and gas stations, there was a hill there where Comanche warriors buried their dead standing up. Some say it was a place where the air turned sideways. Others claim a traveling preacher in the 1890s built a shack on that land, declared it a gate to hell. and burned his own congregation alive one Sunday morning to close the rift. The fire department said the place had no windows, no doors, just a black pit in the center. The modern rest stop? It was built in the 1970s, after a long push from the Department of Transportation to make West Texas more convenient. No one could explain why that patch of land kept coming up in the surveys. It was never the first choice, but every other plan kept failing. Sinkholes, equipment failures, accidents. One foreman had a stroke while marking the ground, just fell face first into the dirt and whispered, "It sees me now," before dying. Now, decades later, the building stands spotless, maintained but never upgraded. The lights are original, the signs haven't changed. And if you ask the state, there's no official record of that rest stop ever being built. No blueprints, no budget, it's just there, and it wants people to stop. That's the scariest part, it lures you. The way the air gets cooler when you pull in, even in July. The way your bladder suddenly feels fuller than it is. The way the lights buzz softly, comforting, like a lullaby. It wants you to relax, to linger, to look in the mirror just a little too long. They say if you drive past it without stopping, the road feels longer for the next 20 miles. Time bends. Your headlights flicker. Your engine stutters. Like the rest, stop knows you saw it and ignored it. And it's angry. But if you do stop, if you pull in at 3:17 a.m. and take a leak, or wash your face, or check your phone only to find it's 4:33, but your watch still says 3:17, and your reflection is brushing its teeth when you're not, well, don't scream, don't turn around. And above all, don't ask the voice behind the stall door any questions, because the moment you speak back, the moment you acknowledge it, your reflection becomes real. And you become part of the place. Just another whisper in the walls, another pair of eyes behind the mirror. Another story truckers only tell each other in the dead of night, driving down the I-10, praying the next rest stop has piss on the floor, broken vending machines and flickering lights. Because anything's better than clean.